Before we begin, please be advised that this episode discusses sensitive and disturbing topics, including the sexual abuse and murder of a child. It contains explicit content and is not suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is strongly advised. In troubled families, abuse and neglect are permitted. It's the talking about them that's not permitted.
You are now listening to The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast hosted by Kay on Spotify. A podcast aimed to uncover and share the stories behind heinous and insane acts that have been overlooked or overshadowed by mainstream media, getting justice for the voices that can't speak.
What's up, y'all? It's your girl Kay, and I am the host of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast, a podcast designed to focus on crimes committed in the Black community that you don't hear about in mainstream media, giving a voice to those victims that have otherwise been silenced. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast with me, Kay, the Texas girl in the Georgia world, baby. Ladies, how y'all feel? Fellas, y'all all right? It is Sunday, June 7th, 2026, and your girl is feeling great. I have had the last couple of days off, so I've been able to kick back and relax and get some rest in. I ain't got to go back to work until Saturday, so I am loving it, okay? I got me some plans to just lay up and chill with my little tiny human. I'm going to be working on some book stuff and, of course, doing some research for some of these cases, so y'all, ain't tripping on me, okay? But nonetheless, I'm definitely happy to just, be able to give y'all this episode on time. It's going to drop right at 7 o'clock, so I'm excited. Now, before I get into this episode, y'all know that I got to ask what y'all sipping on, right? So tonight I'm sipping on something real cheap, which is like this peach Bellini mimosa. And I think the brand name is Andre. It's like a little $9 bottle that I got out of Walmart. But listen, I don't care how much it costs, it's good. Okay. Like next week, I'm actually going on a wine tour with some of my friends. So I'm definitely planning on stocking up on some bottles. So, y'all feel free to donate because, yeah, Stella Rosa been acting funny lately. And y'all know I got to have me a good drink when I give y'all these episodes. Okay. But yeah, right now I'm drinking on some peach Bellini, and I made me a soul bowl, which is I baked some cornbread in like a little pie tin, and then I cut the middle of it out, stuffed it with some macaroni and cheese, some collard greens, some candy yams, and some pot roast with gravy. Ooh, and it just tastes so good, y'all. So best believe after I drop this episode, your girl gonna be in a food coma because that itis ain't no joke, baby. Okay. But, I definitely wanted to go ahead and get started on part 2 of this special series. Now, in case you missed Sunday's episode last week, what the hell is wrong with you? But, I kicked off the first part of a special series that I'm doing on Naziah Harris. And if you've been living under a rock for the last, I don't know, 2 years, you don't know that Naziah Harris is a 13-year-old girl that was being sexually molested by her aunt's boyfriend slash baby daddy, this raggedy dude by the name of Jarvis Butts, and she ended up pregnant. And this has been one of the most controversial cases. Like, I mean, just outright, we knew Jarvis did it. That was like apparent from jump. But there's so many things that unraveled behind the case that I had to dig into it. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Let's get into it. I hope y'all still got some gas in the tank as we buckle up and head on back to Detroit, Michigan in 2024. Now, I'm going to give y'all a heads up that some of these people that I'm going to be discussing tonight only have first names. So just a heads up, okay? Because the last names were practically impossible to find. But y'all ready to get into it? Y'all know what time it is. Let's get it. This week's case involves Naziah Harris, the victim, Annette Harris, Naziah's grandmother, Shannon Harris, Naziah's aunt and Jarvis's baby mama, Angel Leonard, Jarvis's ex-fiance and one of his baby mamas, this girl named Nay, one of Jarvis's girlfriends, Tawana Butts, Jarvis's sister, a girl named Kizzy, I wanna say at some point Jarvis had some dealings with her, but from the conversation, they sounded like they were just homies. Ian Butts, Jarvis's brother. Melissa, Jarvis's sorta kinda girlfriend. Dina, Jarvis's baby mama, who was literally pregnant at the time of the story. Latricia Johnson, Jarvis's baby mama. Tashiana Davis, one of Jarvis's little flames, who was also his ex-fiancée. And the infamous murderer of the week, Jarvis Butts. Now, when we last left off, the cops had started their investigation on Nazia's disappearance. They had found her clothes and took them to her family, and her family had confirmed that they were, indeed her torn, tattered clothes. So her family had reported her missing, and all roads led to Jarvis. But I want to backtrack a little bit and kind of clarify on a couple of things. So, in the prior episode, I stated that I wasn't sure of who Nazia's brother was that was adopted by Annette as well. But after a little bit of research and some more digging, I found out that his name is Vari. It's either Vari or Vari. It's spelled Vari. And I'm pretty sure that's short for something. But that was her older brother. And I also kind of want to touch more on Annette. Now, previously, I had talked about how Annette had adopted Nazia and her brother, as well as another child, and she was taking care of them. And you would think that she, grew up in a household that was filled with that grandmotherly love and, it was a good environment and all of that. But in all reality, it was far from that. And I specifically didn't say anything about it in episode 1 of the series for that reason. So, for months across TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, all of that, people have been pulling back the layers on who this woman really is and how they carried themselves. And I'm not talking about just Annette, I'm talking about her daughter Shannon as well. They're talking about, how they carried themselves and the deeply toxic generational cycle that involved child protective services that basically failed Naziah and her brother Very, long before January 2024. Okay, so let's start with the grandmother, Annette Harris. Now, to the mainstream media, Annette was the grieving guardian. She was standing at the podiums, she's holding the flyers, crying for her baby. Oh, please, Naziah, come home. Somebody, please say something. We love her. She needs to be home. All of that. But the streets and court records told a completely different story about this chick. So remember, Annette was Naziah and her brother Vari's biological grandmother, but she was also their legal adoptive mother. But what a lot of people don't know is that CPS had a long, heavy history with this family. Now, y'all already know Naziah's mother had her parental rights completely stripped due to profound neglect and instability. And when CPS intervened, instead of the kids going into a safe, detached foster home, like away from the fucking family, the system did what it often does. It placed them right back into the family ecosystem with a net. Like we've seen this, time and time again. Remember the Yummy Sandifer case? CPS basically put his ass right back where he started, and look at how that ended up. But, social media investigators and local advocates really started digging into what life was really like under Annette's roof. People in the community described her place as a household that it wasn't necessarily a haven of protection, but like a revolving door of chaos. Like that house was a highly unstable environment where boundaries just didn't exist. She allowed Jarvis's a man with a known horrific criminal record, free, unmonitored access to her home and the kids that were in it. And when Naziah actually vanished on January 9th, Annette's first instinct wasn't an emergency response. Like she actually waited to report her missing. And when she finally did report her missing, she reported her as a runaway. And that, delayed a massive citywide Detroit police investigation for an entire month. And baby, social media, oh, they ate that shit up. They said, we gonna tell it like it is and call it like it is. This was an intentional effort to keep the bright lights off a real investigation away from that house. CPS had just been advised of some fuckery that was going on in her house not too long before because one of Naziah's cousins told her parents that while they were at a pool party for a family member's birthday, Jarvis touched her inappropriately. And Naziah spoke up and told them that it happened to her too. So CPS stepped in, but the case was closed shortly after because naturally the girls clammed up. They looked through the house and said that there was enough food, no bruises, and they just closed the case. Okay, I understand that you got to check to make sure there's enough food and, that there's no visible bruises, but there are other terms of abuse. There are other ways to abuse children outside of starving them or fucking hitting them and leaving, obvious bruises. Like, come on, there's mental abuse, there's all kind of shit. Trust me, I know. It's just like, and then when you do check for bruises, you do the shit in front of the person that's being accused. Make that make sense. You can't sit there and be like, "Oh, yeah, okay, it's a report that you're being abused by your father, so I'm gonna check for bruises in front of your father. I'm gonna ask you in front of your father, are you being abused?" Like, get the fuck out of here. They failed to see that the environment they dropped those kids into was entirely unsafe. Oh, and then we have the aunt, Shannon Harris, with her built like an iPhone charger, mud face looking like she can make a full course meal off Fruit Loops and bacon having ass. Now, if y'all want to know why folks are completely done with Shannon, you only have to look at how she conducted herself after her 13-year-old niece went missing. Like, it was apparent for me. Now, Shannon was Jarvis Butts' on and off again girlfriend. She had 5 whole kids with this nigga. Like, one wasn't enough. But when the news broke and the community was out, on frozen pavements searching for Naziah, Shannon went on social media. On February 20th, 2024, she put up a post that sent like just anger through the entire community. She wasn't out there begging for information. No, she wrote, "My niece would be home if only I knew her location. But one thing for sure, don't try to malign my reputation by painting an untrue picture of who I am." Okay, let that sink in. A 13-year-old girl is out in the elements, presumed dead. And Shannon's main concern on Facebook is her reputation. And then behind closed doors, she's texting about how Naziah was asking about directions and how she's being sneaky. Like, girl, yo Thanos from the Avengers looking ass is worried about the wrong thing. How about you get your ass up to go look for her? Or ask your man what the fuck he did because you know he guilty, you raggedy bitch. Bitches like her really piss me off. I'm sorry. You're the type of chick that can't be alone. You'll be with anybody and do anything that they tell you to because you so desperate to have a man and you can't be alone. You sacrifice your own kids' safety, you miserable bitch. These are your babies, your family, your niece. Like, damn. I can't stand to see bitches like that. I know bitches like that and have dealt with low self-esteem people like that. How can you not care that your family, your flesh and blood is missing and your man is at the root of it? Like, come on. You are literally sleeping with the devil. And you could tell that she had like zero concern because when you listen to the jail calls between Jarvis and Shannon, she talks to him with zero urgency about Naziah at all. Instead, she's focused on setting up the little GTL jail app, and organizing video visits and managing the kids and shit. Like, at one point when she took the stand at the preliminary hearing later on, she actually testified that she thought Jarvis and Naziah had just a normal uncle-niece bond. First of all, motherfucker, that ain't her damn uncle. Y'all motherfuckers ain't married. You just a fuck off for him. You his baby mama. She claiming, oh, she had no idea Jarvis was taking Naziah and her other young cousins to his auto shop to brutally assault them. Bitch, please. I ain't buying it, and neither is anybody else with your gargoyle built ass. Go sit on the top of somebody's bell tower, ho. Ugh. So the court evidence showed Jarvis's phone constantly pinging at Annette's house. Constantly. So I'm just like, how you gonna say you didn't know when them your kids? If you're that dumb as you claim, then CPS should have definitely come to get your kids. But I'll say this. The community's consensus opinion is loud and clear. Shannon and Annette ain't shit. That's just across the board. Everybody agrees Shannon and Annette ain't shit. They both chose the comfort and protection of a toxic predator over the literal lives of the children in their custody. Okay, I'm sorry, y'all. Now, let's move back on to this predator Jarvis and the bullshit that I uncovered. Okay, so check this out. On November 9th, 2004, Jarvis had committed the ultimate crime, raping a child. Not just any child, but his own blood. And the trauma ran deep through his family. Now, he was sentenced to 10 years, but he got early release. But clearly, rehabilitation didn't mean shit to him because years later, on April 13th, 2022, like I said, during that family birthday party, one of Naziah's relatives went to their mama and they were crying and they told her that Jarvis had touched him inappropriately. And once again, a familial monster is hiding in plain sight for decades, shielded by fear and silence and the chaotic smokescreen of his personal life. Because what did they do? They told her, don't say anything. What happens in this house stays in this house. So at this point, people are all over searching for Naziah's body. She's been missing for exactly a month. Her own father, Mervyn Jennings, was out searching for her, checking abandoned homes, vacant lots, everything in between that you could think of. And, Mervyn initially didn't even know she was missing. Two of the school resource officers tracked him down and they were like, hey, when was the last time you been up to your daughter's school? And he was like, my daughter's school? I don't even know what school she go to. I've been looking for her. And they looked at each other like, the fuck? And so, he's like, "Okay, well, what's going on?" And they tell him, "Sir, your daughter is missing." And, this was devastating to him because he had already been dealing with a lot. What people didn't know is that Mervyn had been diagnosed with congestive heart failure, and bruh had been given days to live. Like, he needed a new heart, but couldn't get one. So, even though he had that going on, he decided that he would be spending his dying days looking for his baby girl. He missed 8 years of her life because, she was the product of an affair. Like, it's giving very much Dwayne Wade's side baby. You know what I'm saying? But he spent his last days searching for her to no avail. And at the same time, on February 8th, 2024, Jarvis surrenders himself to the police. But it wasn't for the murder. Not yet. Remember that gun charge that got pushed back? Well, his attorney went ahead and worked out a plea for him that provided, he had to turn himself in, of course, but he was turning himself in to serve a 1 year sentence on that gun charge. He thought he was playing the system. He was like, all right, I just got to do a few months, take a little plea deal with the gun board, and I'm going to walk my ass right the fuck back up out of here. And then on February 15th, 2024, Detective Jason Mays and his partner, they go and they interview Jarvis in connection to Naziah's case. So, Jarvis is sweating bullets and shit. And he tells him that, he was just trying to get his gun charge situated and that Naziah would occasionally come by the shop to work with his daughter. But you see, jail calls and jail cells have a funny way of making a man desperate. Now, the moment that Jarvis got booked in as inmate number 0000983, the phone started ringing. And listeners, the jail calls from February of 2024, oh, they paint a mean picture of a man running a literal circus from behind bars. He wasn't mourning or grieving. He wasn't reflecting. He was plotting and planning, okay? Baby, he was hitting up every single woman in his rotation, trying to get them to download this GTL Getting Out app or depositing cash via Touch Pay and Cash App. And I'm talking about multiple bitches a day, okay? Like, whew, y'all, let's look at the lineup. Okay, first up, you had Angel Leonard. Now, Angel was his main baby mama at the time. Yeah, he had, Shannon's goof troop ass, but Angel was the woman he was actually living with when Naziah vanished. Now, when the police came knocking on Angel's door, she refused to speak to them. She was like, the 10 toes down for Jarvis chick, like dumbass. On the phone calls, she's telling him how the cops are breaking down her neck and, Jarvis being a little smooth talking bastard and manipulative as ever, he's telling her exactly what to say. He's like, baby, don't talk to him. You ain't got to tell him nothing. You just be there for me, baby. Oh, but the game gets deeper. Y'all, Angel had Jarvis's physical Cash App card, right? But who was actually funding it? Another woman named Nay. Now, Nay had been dating Jarvis off and on for like 4 or 5 years. Now, she ain't have no kids with him, but she was out here working and, putting her hard earned money on his card, completely unaware that Angel was the one holding the plastic. And so when Jarvis calls Nay, he's pressing her for money, telling her, "Oh, I might be facing up to 8 years if things go wrong." And, straight up telling her, "Baby, this your time to prove what you said." Woo, the nagacity, the negroidial audacity, because that's what it is, mobbers. And do you know that later on in another call, he had the nerve, the unmitigated gall to tell Nay to stop loaning her own sister money because she isn't managing it well, which is basically translation for don't give your sister money because that's money you could be giving to me. Like when I say, boy, fuck you to the 10th power, like I actually feel sorry for that girl because he used the fuck out of her. Oh, but wait, his little roster continues. Okay, so in the midst of all of this, he calls his sister, Tawana Butts, begging her to call a woman named Kizzy because Kizzy is ignoring his calls. Why? Because Jarvis needs Kizzy to download the GTL app too to transfer more funds. And when he finally gets a hold of Kizzy, he's begging her to stay by his side through his court days, promising, "I'm gonna keep it a band with you, baby. I'm gonna keep it 100%. I'm gonna keep it real with you, and I'm gonna be all about you." Yeah, her and a bunch of other bitches. And then he calls his fiance, yes, you heard me right, his fiance, Tashiana Davis, a whole separate chick. He's talking to her on the phone like he a boss, like he Nino Brown from New Jack City and shit, demanding that she look into his books. But by April 20th, 2024, like literally a few months later, the fiance Tashiana, she sound like she at her wits end with this nigga. Oh, and then there's Dina. Now, Dina got smashed and then Jarvis disappeared. I shouldn't laugh at that, but damn. Dina got so thoroughly ghosted by Jarvis that she had to write a physical letter to the jail just to get in touch with him when she found out that he was locked up. See, Dina had found out that she had gotten pregnant in the past and told Jarvis that he was the daddy, only to turn around and find out that for once he actually was not the father. Baby, paternity court didn't see that one coming. Oh, but guess what? Dina was pregnant with his child for real this time when he got locked up. And on April 29th, she's talking on the phone with him and she's screaming at him because she's like, "Oh, this Sergeant Sharon Jones, she keep calling me trying to get information on you. Like, what can she do that? Ain't that harassment?" Um, no, sis, that's called the police doing their job. And then you got Melissa, she next, who, Jarvis chewed out for not answering the phone before when he was demanding money. Oh, and then there's a woman in her 50s that's up in North Carolina who was completely confused about what their relationship even was, but she wasn't around that long. Maybe because she was down in good old North Kakalaki. I don't know. So Tashiana's house got raided because Jarvis left a cell phone in her car, and that cell phone tracked back to Naziah. Oh, and then there was Latricia Johnson. I forgot about her. Okay. Now, Latricia has a daughter with Jarvis. Now, he borrowed her car, and in typical Jarvis fashion, he wrecked it, totaled that bitch out. But, when Latricia went to go get her stuff and clean out the car, she found something a little different, something that connected directly to the missing piece of the puzzle. She found Naziah's glasses. Ooh, child, my hands is itching to slap his ass. I lost my shit when I heard one of them jail calls. Like, he has so many calls with all of these bitches, and I only heard 2 calls to his kids in the months that he was in there. 2 fucking calls, but over 20 calls to different bitches. Like, on one of the calls to his kid, you can hear one of his children asking the most simplistic question, but the most devastating question. That little boy said, "Why you always in jail?" Mm, out of the mouths of babes, do you hear me? Your own kids told you that you ain't shit. So while Jarvis is busy playing puppet master with his finances and his women, the shadow of a missing child is still, hanging heavily over everything. That missing child being Naziah. And nobody believed this dude. Nobody. Jarvis's own family knew who he really was. His brother Ian, oh, that nigga didn't hold back at all. I was watching them videos like, damn. Ian explained to investigators that their sister and Jarvis didn't even really have a relationship. Like, he called Jarvis exactly what he was, a fucking weirdo. Baby, Ian had no filter. I fucks with him. He said, and I quote, "We not heard about him. We don't give a fuck about him. We worried about that baby." I mean, when you right, you right. So March 12, 2024, the authorities searched the area of 7 Mile and Berg near the river in relation to Naziah's case. And there they found pink overalls, a black hoodie with headphones in the pocket, and a shoe. And it turned out that all of that belonged to Naziah. Now, sadly, Mervyn Jennings, who had spent all that time looking for her while battling his own illness, his condition is getting worse to the point that, he can't function. And on July 24th, 2024, Mervyn Jennings passed away, not knowing where his daughter was. I'd like to think that the two are, I know it sounds crazy, but I like to think that the two are reunited and that they're building their relationship with each other, in heaven since they couldn't do it here on earth. Now, meanwhile, the investigation still ongoing. Like, okay, look at the timeline the investigators put together. They have the surveillance video of Naziah getting into the car. They have the cell phone towers placing Jarvis at the motel in Ypsilanti and then at the riverbank the next morning. They have Naziah's blood, her torn clothes hidden in the brush, and absolutely zero activity on her social media, which was crazy because she was always on social media. Her phone, her bank accounts from the moment that she got off that school bus. The tech team even dug into Jarvis's search history and found Google searches from just weeks prior where he was looking up abortion medications and terrifying ways to terminate a pregnancy, knowing that this 13-year-old child was carrying his baby. And so the Wayne County prosecutor, Kim Worthy, she looked at this mountain of evidence that the Detroit Police Department compiled. Baby, it was over 500 gigabytes of phone extractions and hundreds of gigabytes of video. And she realized they didn't need a body to know what happened to this child. The sheer volume of forensic and digital and circumstantial evidence pointed to one undeniable truth. Naziah's life had been violently taken. And so, as the investigation is underway, Jarvis's sister, Tawana, she's watching a podcast episode about Naziah's disappearance. And as she watched the details unfold, something all of a sudden clicked. Like a memory just came rushing back. She remembered seeing Jarvis getting in and out of this Cadillac. And so, with that memory and knowing that there's a Cadillac that's involved in the investigation, Tawana goes to the police. They took everything that she told them and they decided to use it as the nail in Jarvis's coffin. So her testimony became a cornerstone of the state's case, really. And after that, June 2024, while Jarvis was already sitting in the cell thinking that he was just doing time for a gun charge, oh, the hammer fell. He was charged for the disappearance and murder of Naziah Harris. Now, by September 2024, the murder charges were official. The Wayne County Prosecutor's Office officially hit him with the heavyweight. They hit him with murder and multiple sex crime charges. The investigators brought in a coworker from the shop who was working with him at the Connor Street Auto Shop. And who was that coworker? It was King. The same coworker who was in the car with Jarvis when they picked Naziah up from the corner of Cornwall and 3 Mile and then took her ass up to Ypsilanti. And between the pressure of his interrogation and the jailhouse phone call logs between him and Jarvis from the hidden cell phone inside of that Cadillac that they impounded, that phone gave up everything. The text messages, the location pings to the Rouge River at 7 Mile and Berg Road, and the horrifying Google searches about the abortions. They saw all of that. Now, when you talk about a funeral or a homegoing service for Naziah, you got to realize the unique heartbreak that this family has been carrying. Usually when a case reaches a conviction like this, the family has already laid their loved one to rest. But for Naziah's grandmother, Annette, and, the rest of the circle, closure ain't going to happen. Because as of right now, even in 2026, Naziah's physical body has still never been found. When the case was tracking through the system, the city really rallied around them. Detroit rapper Skilla Baby, he even stepped up publicly, offering to fully cover the costs of a proper funeral and memorial service for Naziah, just to give the family some semblance of peace when the time came. The community even gathered for her 15th birthday, releasing pink balloons into the sky, trying to keep her memory alive. But an actual formal final funeral has been just kind of put in limbo because the search in the freezing woods and the dark waters of the river never stopped. But the walls didn't just close in on Jarvis just because of Naziah's case alone. Mm-mm. Once the Detroit Police Department, the Michigan State Police, and the FBI started dragging his name into the light, open floodgates. Other victims started coming forward to speak to investigators, realizing that this man had been running a silent reign of terror for over a decade. An 11-year-old girl and a 20-year-old woman came forward to investigators, exposing that Jarvis had sexually abused them years prior when they were children under the age of 13. One case was running from 2012 to 2014, and the other one was from 2015 to 2017. Then the police uncovered that he had sexually assaulted an 8-year-old female relative at that same auto repair shop on East Warren, alongside another assault involving a girlfriend's 4-year-old daughter. By the time the investigation hit its peak, Jarvis was just sitting in a cell for a disappearance. Like, he was exposed as a serial predator facing a mountain of felony charges across 6 entirely separate criminal cases compiled by the assistant prosecutors Matthew Makepeace and Tina Ripley. Like I said, the state didn't just have one case. They ended up bringing 6 different criminal cases against him. It turned out he had been terrorizing multiple young girls in the community between the ages of 4 and 13. He was facing counts of second-degree criminal sexual conduct, third-degree criminal sexual conduct, all across the board. Like, damn, yo, I really want to strangle this motherfucker. He better be glad the only way folks can reach him right now is through a Ouija board or a seance. I'm so serious. During the investigations, Jarvis's panic, it's showing in them phone calls. He called his boy Cordell, that's the dude that everybody knew as King, the guy that owned the Cadillac. He was the one that went with him that night to Ypsilanti. But, like, he wasn't calling him to, like, vent or nothing. He was calling him and begging him to get rid of evidence. Like, he's like, "Hey, yo, you gotta get rid of that phone. Get rid of that phone. Get that phone out the car." Because he knew what was on it. He knew about the text threads between his cousin Roxy, or between him and Naziah that his cousin Roxy had uncovered. He knew where Naziah had been asking about a specific street before she vanished. And at the same time that that was happening, that was when Latricia found those glasses in her car when he had wrecked it out or whatever. So at the November 1st, 2024 preliminary trial, Naziah's aunt, Marquita Harris, she looked directly at Jarvis. This is one of the few relatives of Naziah that I fuck with. She looked right at Jarvis and she delivered words that just echoed through the frustration of the entire community on this shit. She told him, "Justice will never be served. You're still able to live. You're still able to get health care. You're still able to breathe without any remorse." And then Tawana, oh, she stepped up a little bit. The sister who chose justice over blood, she hadn't even planned on speaking that day, but she stood up for some of the victims. I got to give her that. She looked at her brother, the man that she helped put away, and she said, "I'm here today for Naziah and my nieces and the other victims that my brother has harmed. You made your bed, you got to lie in it. Stand in it. Do what you got to do." So, for 4 intense days, the state laid this meticulous and devastating trail of evidence surrounding the disappearance and the murder of 13-year-old Naziah Harris. And if you've been following the Shanitria Speaks podcast, and shout out to her, by the way, because that's where I got the information from the jail calls from. But she really put all the pieces from, that specific hearing under the microscope. Um, Judge Aaliyah Sabri presided over the preliminary. Now, Kim Worthy was the Wayne County prosecutor who that chick had a wall of forensic evidence. Now, for whatever reason, they did not release it to the public, but Jarvis had a public defender because obviously this nigga couldn't afford an attorney. Like, there were so many things in this case that were withheld, and I don't understand why. Like, I mean, I get withholding the kids' names because they're minors, but some of this stuff made no sense. But the defense's core argument was simple: no body, no crime. They argued that without a physical body or explicit communication showing a premeditated plot to execute a murder, that the state's case didn't meet the legal threshold. Oh, but the prosecution was like, nice try. They had a timeline that was just like a gut punch. Okay, so I gotta mention these text messages again. They're like a vital part of the trial. Sergeant Sharon Jones took the stand and she read through an unbelievable amount of text messages between Jarvis and Naziah. Like over 100 of them that showed that Jarvis had been manipulating Naziah into this so called relationship that in his sick ass mind he thought was okay. And then the prosecution let the motive be known. The prosecution looked at them phone records and presented them in the court and told everybody how Jarvis became aware in November of 2023 that Naziah was pregnant. And so the prosecution argued that Jarvis was already facing, that impending unrelated jail sentence for his gun charge that was scheduled for January 9th of 2024, the exact day that Naziah disappeared. She told them about how Jarvis had been panicking about what he called a legal issue. And the state argued that his absolute terror of being exposed for getting her pregnant is exactly what drove him to murder her. Because, duh. And then, oh, they really got his ass. A phone forensics and cell tower mapping expert took the stand, and he mapped out Jarvis's exact moments during those crucial 36 hours that surrounded Naziah's disappearance. And in that moment, oh, Jarvis himself was sitting there. When he heard that, he was sitting there thinking,
No, you done fucked up, right? No, 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 no. You know you done fucked up, right?
yeah. Like, how dumb are you to have your cell phone with you when you commit murder? Get a burner or fucking leave the phone at home. You literally are taking evidence with you. Like, why is it so hard to comprehend that your cell phone can be tracked? And this is what I mean by that. So when he gets on the stand, he talks about what happened. He said, oh, January 9th, 2024, after 4 p.m., Jarvis's phone pings at his auto shop on Connor Street right after Naziah was last seen getting off her school bus. Then later on that day, before 7:30 p.m., the phone data tracks him heading directly to Ypsilanti, matching a witness account of seeing Naziah with him. Between 8:22 p.m. and 9 o'clock, his phone pings back near his Connor Street shop, then travels toward the Parkcrest Inn in Harper Woods. And then the next day, at like 11:40 p.m., between that and 1:30 a.m., his phone pings near 7 Mile and Berg Road, the exact River Rouge search area. See what I mean? Just stupid. Like, didn't think that you were literally carrying evidence with you, dude. So, another person to take the stand is Border Patrol Agent Wyatt Barnes. Now, he testified about how they were searching the frozen riverbanks of River Rouge. And even though they didn't locate her body, they had found that stuff in the brush that I mentioned earlier, her jacket, the pink coveralls that had the headphones inside the pocket, and the black Nike shoe. And those items matched the exact clothing that witnesses described Naziah wearing on the afternoon that she vanished. And if that wasn't chilling enough, a local citizen named Valerie Smith, she took the stand. She testified that in late March, she was walking when she spotted a photo ID that was on the ground. And so, she had been walking past it for like 2.5 weeks before she finally picked it up. Damn, that's a long ass time to see an ID on the ground. But the moment that she picked it up and she saw the face on the card, she was like, oh shit, this is Naziah Harris's ID. And of course, at this point, the defense is like, fuck, we're screwed. What are we going to do? So they're trying desperately to like minimize the tracking data. They're arguing that Jarvis was simply visiting various women in his life and that none of these pings definitively prove that he was physically holding Naziah. Like, fuck the fact that there were witness accounts that they saw her. But okay. So the prosecution pulled an usher and was like, watch this. They put them kids on the stand. Now, because of their age, the media was prohibited from, recording their actual voices. But the testimony that leaked out of that courtroom, oh, it shook everybody to the core. That same 8-year-old girl, the cousin of Naziah that I mentioned earlier that said Jarvis touched her, she took the witness stand. And she talked about how on 2 separate occasions, Jarvis took her and Naziah and another child to that auto repair shop on East Warren Avenue where he worked. And she literally looked at the court and she testified that she witnessed Jarvis having sex with Naziah on both occasions. She testified that he did the same thing to another girl, and that on the second time that she was with him when she went to that shop, Jarvis turned his sights to her, trying to rape her too. The only reason she survived it is because she kept fighting back and telling him no repeatedly until he just, finally gave up and took them home. One of his own children got on the stand and confronted him, and oh my God, this broke my heart, y'all. She told him, she said, "You were somebody I called dad until you did what you did. You did very hurtful things to me. I live with the trouble you caused me. I no longer look at you as a father figure, no longer as a hero, but as a monster. This is your baby telling you this." His ex-fiancee, Tashiana Davis, she also took the stand and she described Jarvis as fiercely, aggressively protective and secretive over his cell phone, not his kids, not his family, but his cell phone. She told the court that she had absolutely no idea he was juggling a massive amount of multiple women and, using relationships with mothers to demonically gain access to them and groom them and assault them. Oh, baby. At this point, the defense team was just defeated. Like by the fourth day, the defense rested without even so much as calling a single witness. They were relying strictly on the legal argument that, the state's case was purely circumstantial, but Judge Aaliyah Savory, she had heard enough. She told the defense, "It's cool. Y'all ain't gotta say shit. I got this." And when it came time to make her ruling on whether there was sufficient probable cause to bind Jarvis Butts over, for a full criminal trial, she ain't hold back the fire at all. When the prosecutor, Kim Worthy, officially leveled that hammer on him, she made it clear the evidence that Naziah was deceased was overwhelming, and the community execution of this investigation proved that his pattern of targeting the innocent was finally over. And so they remanded him to jail without bond at the 36th District Court under Magistrate Delphia Burton, cutting him off from the streets that, he had used as a hunting ground for so many years. And on November 4th, 2024, Judge Sabri, she told the defense that the evidence was overwhelming and that the court fully believed Jarvis Butts intentionally killed her. She looked at him sitting in her courtroom and she called him exactly what the evidence showed him to be, a monster. And with that final definitive declaration, she ordered Jarvis Ramon Butts over to the Third Circuit Court to stand trial for first degree premeditated murder, criminal sexual conduct, and child sexually abusive activity. The state officially secured its path to hold this nigga accountable. So they began looking at how they were going to present, for his trial, and the preliminary continued over the course of the next year. New judge, new courtroom, the whole nine. This time, sitting at the center of the bench, steering the ship in the Third Circuit Court, was Judge Nicholas J. Hathaway. Now, he's the one who had to maintain order because, Lord, it was a lot of grief and rage in that room. Then you had the prosecution, which was Assistant Prosecutors Matthew McPeace and Tina Ripley. And they were both, of course, working for Wayne County Prosecutor Kim Worthy. These were the geniuses that were responsible for tying together like 500 gigabytes of cell phone extractions, the clothing forensics, the location data to build the murder case without a body, all of that. And then, Jarvis had his defense attorney who they just didn't want to reveal the identity of, but did it really matter? So Jarvis wasn't just looking at a slap on the wrist this time. He was facing 6 entirely separate criminal cases, all wrapped into one legal storm. And the main case, of course, involving Naziah, the prosecution went for the throat with first degree premeditated murder. And if a jury convicted him on that, he was looking at mandatory life in prison without the possibility of parole. Then you got to throw in the multiple count charges of first degree, second degree, and third degree criminal sexual conduct across 5 other files involving other young victims. Oh, yeah, he was staring down a century behind bars. Now, The legal battle itself took months of maneuvering and, stretching through the preliminary stages, discovery disputes over phone data files, and, motions all the way through 2025 and into early 2026. But the state was locked and loaded and ready. They were ready to present a mountain of circumstantial and forensic evidence to the jury. And I guess by the time 2026 rolled around, Jarvis knew that his back was against the wall. The evidence was too much for him to dispute. The community wanted blood, and there was no way out for his little punk ass. So on February 12th, 2026, Jarvis Butts slunk his little ass back inside that courthouse before Judge Nicholas Hathaway, and he entered a guilty plea across all 6 cases. So instead of risking mandatory life without parole on the first-degree murder conviction, a deal got struck for second-degree murder alongside guilty pleas for the various, criminal sexual conduct charges. So he pleaded guilty to second-degree murder for the killing of Naziah Harris. And he also pleaded guilty to 5 other counts of criminal sexual conduct involving those other young victims. And as part of that plea deal, the court demanded that he had to give a truthful statement detailing exactly what he did with Naziah's body so that they could finally bring her home. And he agreed to it, but obviously, as we all know, her body has never been found because he gave us some bullshit ass lie. But the real emotional aspect of the proceedings didn't happen during the legal arguments. It happened when it was time for the witnesses to take the stand for the sentencing phase. On March 12th, 2026, Judge Hathaway's courtroom was like a fucking volcano eruption. It was just unfiltered chaos during these victim impact statements. 7 different speakers took the stand to testify about the trauma, the financial ruin, and the absolute destruction that Jarvis Butts left in their lives. Oh, and Isaiah's grandmother, Annette, this chick stood up. She's bursting into tears. She testifies in the court. She's just like, I don't feel safe in my home. I've been threatened. My family has been threatened. Of course you have, because they knew you weren't shit. So, all of this raw emotion is hitting the room. People is shouting and cussing all across the audience gallery. It got so bad, Judge Hathaway had to pause the proceedings and order officers to escort multiple women that were fucking with this nigga out of the courtroom just so that he could have control. Imagine going in the courtroom and your nigga about to be locked away, and you see that your nigga is out here fucking other bitches, but you too busy arguing with them and not realizing this nigga been playing all of us like lotto. Mm. And other relatives, they took the stand, including this relative of Jarvis who cried, saying she couldn't understand how he, became the monster that was standing before them. And then one of the younger survivors also took the stand, and it just at that point I think it got really, emotional. On March 12th, 2026, Judge Hathaway was like, oh, fuck this plea deal, and threw the book at him, sentencing Jarvis Ramon Butts to 35 to 60 years in prison just for the murder. And then on top of that, gave him 10 to 15-year concurrent sentences for the multiple sexual assaults for all the other girls. Like, damn, 6 10 to 15-year terms. That's 60 to 90 years plus the 35 to 60 years for the murder. Yeah, your corpse is still gonna be in prison, nigga. And then the icing on the cake, there was one major condition that was written in that plea agreement that meant everything to the state and to the family. So the prosecutor, Kim Worthy, made it clear that to get that 35-year minimum instead of life, Jarvis was strictly required to give a truthful and recorded statement disclosing the exact location of Naziah's body, which he had claimed that he had dumped near the Rouge River back in January of 2024. The prosecution confirmed that, they were satisfied with the statement that he gave and gave it to the investigators, hoping that they could bring Naziah home, but the body was never found. Now, the legal system took its time, but the paperwork gets signed and the time gets handed to Jarvis. And he left that courtroom in a green inmate uniform and a face mask, and he headed straight to the reception center to start his sentence that ensured that he would never walk the streets of Detroit as a free man again. The system did its job. The prosecutors, they stood their ground, and the brave voices on that witness stand made sure that his sins were shouted in a court of law. They shipped Jarvis out to the Charles Egler Reception and Guidance Center over in Jackson, which is a facility where they hold inmates temporarily to process them before they send them to their permanent prison. But he was only there for 10 days, not because he was, getting ready to head to prison. No. Jarvis knew he wasn't going to get that family closure. Let me tell y'all how much of a bitch Jarvis really was. Just 2 weeks after he got his little yellow ass sent to that damn facility, on March 26, 2026, the Michigan Department of Corrections confirmed that 43-year-old Jarvis Butts was found dead inside of his cell at the Charles Egler Reception and Guidance Center in Jackson, Michigan. So the Michigan Department of Corrections, their staff, claimed that they attempted life-saving measures, but, obviously it was too late. They launched an active investigation into his death, and right now it's being reported as a suicide. Okay, so the state police said that it was a suicide, but I'm kind of hoping that somebody went into his cell and did God's work. I'm just saying. But according to investigators, he took the coward's way out. He left a bitter taste in my mouth, and I'm sure Naziah's family theirs as well, because he left this world before the family could fully recover the peace that they deserved. And I mean, look at the bitter irony for the family, right? The man who stole Naziah's future took his own way out after just 2 weeks behind bars. He escaped the decades of prison time that he was looking at. And it left Naziah's family, especially her cousins Roxy and Kawana, it left them in a state of pure panic. They're terrified that with him gone, the exact secrets of where she is might be buried forever. They may never find this girl. Like, the Detroit Police Department had to put out a statement assuring the public that even though Jarvis is dead, they're still 100% committed to searching for Naziah's body. Now, I do want to clear up the rumors and address the big question that's been bouncing around the blocks of Detroit since day one. Was anybody else actually arrested in connection with her death? Now, we know from the evidence that Jarvis wasn't completely solo on the day that she disappeared. We know that Cordell was with him. The investigation showed that he was driving the car when they picked Naziah up from the school bus stop. The police questioned him, and they used jailhouse phone calls between him and Jarvis to track down that cell phone in that impounded Cadillac. We know that. But he was never actually arrested, never charged. The family has been vocal from the jump, pushing for complete justice, meaning they want anybody who had a hand in it or anyone who helps cover up the crime, be it Cordell, be it one of them bitches, anybody that had anything to do with the crime before or after her death, to pay the price. And that means him too. But as it stands right now on the official record, Jarvis is the only person who was hit with murder and felony charges for her death. No other arrests have been executed by Detroit Police Department or the task force in connection to her homicide. At 41 years old, Jarvis wasn't just a career criminal with a history of serving 10 years in prison. He was a man who moved through life like a hurricane, leaving a trail of broken women, neglected children, and devastated families in his path. Like, to give you an idea of the chaos, Jarvis had 13 children by multiple women. And yet, when the walls finally started closing in on him, his only concern wasn't the children that he brought into this world, or the innocent life that he had taken. It was his own skin, his money, his control. This is why we got to start having these hard ass conversations in our community. We got to look closer at the people we let around our kids. And we got to listen to our young girls when they seem distant, when they start hiding their phones, or when they carry the weight of the world on their shoulders. Naziah deserved a full life. She deserved to grow up, to learn what real safe love feels like. Instead, she was taken advantage of by a monster hiding in plain sight. We've got to be careful with our babies, y'all. But that is the story of Naziah Harris. And now it is time for Fair or Foul, where we look at the justice system to determine if the sentencing that was given was indeed fair, or if it was just some bullshit that's going to have us sitting back saying, what the fuck? ooh, I've been waiting on this one. Oh, I got so much shit to say. Y'all know how I'm coming for this segment. This shit was a buildup. Like, it's so much shit when it comes to this entire fucking family, starting with that grandmother. Annette. She is proof that not all grandmothers are the loving and sweet grandmothers. No, this one here, I don't believe for 1 second that she's all loving and caring because CPS has been around your crib way too many times, fam. CPS done came up in there because of your neglect. And that's not too hard to believe because your daughter, Nazia's mother, she was sexually assaulted from what I was seeing in one of the podcasts on YouTube. I believe it came from Shanitria Speaks or it may have come from Toots. But either way, clearly you have an issue with taking care of your kids. Clearly you have an issue with raising children properly. Because look at your fucking daughter, Shannon. The spirit of common sense is not so common. If this bitch had half a Nat's brain cells, then she would have known that her man was fucking on little kids. How the fuck do you not know that that nigga that you have 5 kids with was not only fucking around with other bitches, but fucking around with his own kids? He wasn't out here just molesting strangers. This nasty nigga was out here molesting his own fucking kids, and you just turned a blind eye to it. You couldn't possibly be that fucking stupid with your ass over there built like you trying out for the fucking Detroit Lions. Ain't no way in hell. And y'all can disagree with me. Y'all can say I'm talking shit because she a big girl. I don't give a fuck. I don't. It is a whole cornucopia of shit that I'm pissed off at her ass about and her raggedy ass mama. As for Annette, your ass is supposed to set the tone. It's no wonder that this shit is so dysfunctional. This is a prime example of what I mean by generational curses. When you are a fucked up individual and you raise your kids how you were raised, it takes hard ass fucking work to break that generational curse. I am a prime example of that shit. Y'all know I have never sugarcoated shit. I come from one of the most dysfunctional motherfucking families that has been created, but I busted my ass and I made sure that I didn't pass on any of this fucking generational curses to my kids because I will be fucking damned if I watch them raise their kids the same way that I was raised by certain family members or exposed by certain family members or exhibiting the same fucking behaviors. Get the fuck out of here with that shit. You had the power to change things, but you chose not to. Your ass was supposed to be the fucking matriarch. You had a situation where your daughter got fucked up her damn self and she ended up getting her kids taken away because she got strung out on drugs because she knew no other way to deal with the shit. And then the other daughter over here popping her pussy for anything that comes along and popped out 5 motherfucking kids. And granted, yes, they were all by his ass. But his ass got a total of what, 13, 14 motherfucking kids? I mean, seriously, Annette, at some point in time, did you sit back and say, hey, Shannon, maybe y'all need to slow up and get some birth control? No. At some point in time, you had to sit back and realize that his ass was doing dirt. Oh, and not all of them kids were stair stacked. I really wish, ooh, y'all, I really wish I knew how old those kids were because something is telling me that she probably had at least 1 or 2 of them kids around the time that he went to prison. Because his ass got sentenced to 10 fucking years. Because his ass was 20 fucking years old, fucking on a 4-year-old like a dumbass. So something is telling me that in that time frame, she probably had at least one of his kids, which means that you knew what the fuck he did. He didn't go to jail for statutory rape. He didn't go to jail for assault. His ass was in fucking prison for child molestation. And I'm surprised that the niggas didn't get his ass on the inside then. Like, are you that low self-esteem that you decided that you was just gonna take any nigga that comes along, no matter what the fuck he got going on in his background? You ain't even bother to look to see what type of nigga that he was. Are you that low self-esteem that you get with a nigga that will fuck this bitch, this bitch, this bitch, and the next bitch, then turns around and fucks this bitch kid, that bitch kid, and the next bitch kids? Like, come on, man. Have some fucking self-esteem. And I know I'm talking about self-esteem in the same breath that I just said that she looked like she played tight end for the Boston Big Backs, but goddamn, I know I said I'm over here preaching about self-esteem, and she over here looking like any material that she sleep on is memory foam, and it probably sink to the concrete and shit, but I'm fucking pissed, y'all, because I can't stand when a woman puts a man over her kids or over her family. Nazia wasn't your daughter, no, but that was your niece, bitch. And what really pisses me off is that even after Nazia went missing, even after Jarvis admitted to killing her, you fucking online arguing back and forth with other people and shit and not even talking about helping look for her. I didn't see not one news article, not one fucking video of you helping to go look for her when the missing persons report was done. And your ass is very fucking noticeable. You would be spotted in a fucking video, okay? I saw her father, her own fucking father, who hadn't been in her life in the last fucking 8 years, who was literally fucking dying of congestive heart failure. He still got his ass up and was searching abandoned houses and fields and everywhere else to look for her. But where was your big back ass? Where the fuck were you other than being on social media arguing with folks and shit? Oh, that's, oh, shit. Oh, this got me so fucking mad. Like, who shit. I know somebody posted a picture of her in like this pink dress or something, and she had these finger waves in her head. Side note, I'm sorry, y'all. I never want to laugh so fucking hard in my life. All I could think about when I saw that goddamn picture was hungry, hungry hippos. Like, I'm sorry. I'm probably gonna go to hell for that. And I know I'm switching from anger to laughter, but I'm trying to deal with this shit. I know that don't make no sense to some of y'all, but to me right now it does, damn it. Because this chick was just cheesing and shit with Jarvis in the photo like they were just the fucking prom king and queen. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here looking like I just know that this bitch probably belch after she give blowjobs. Like she looked like she stick butter in her damn orange juice or some shit. I'm so okay. I'm sorry. All right, let me try to bring it back down. Let me go back to Annette. Okay, Annette was their mother. Her grandmother, Naziah's mother, trusted you, whether the kids were taken from her or whether she gave them to you or whatever the case may be. She trusted you with her kids. And now her daughter is gone. I pray to God that Vari is having some type of normal type of life, which I seriously doubt because I could just imagine the fucking amount of emotional trauma that he's dealing with. I pray that he can break those generational curses that he has been exposed to in this fucking family. Like at the end of the day, Annette and Shannon, both of y'all are gonna have to answer to that shit. At some point, y'all are gonna see what type of fucked up individuals that y'all are, what type of shit y'all put these kids in. At some point, you gotta sit back and take accountability, self reflect, and say, damn, how am I feeling as a mother or an aunt or a grandmother right now? Because the minute the CPS got involved, that should have been the moment to say, okay, hey, I'm failing in some capacity. The minute that Naziah and her cousin came forward and said that they had been touched, there should have been no reason for that man to be around them at all. All communication should have been cut off. There should have been no reason for him to still have access to her like that. Shannon, bitch, you should have said right then and there, okay, hey, you know what? Even if I don't believe this shit, to alleviate anything further from happening, y'all gonna stay the fuck away from each other. Jarvis, you stay the fuck away from my niece. Annette, you're her grandmother. That's when you go to your daughter and say, hey, Shannon, she just said that she was being touched. I ain't trying to have no people up in my house. And then another girl just said the same thing. And this nigga got a history, so we gonna make sure that they not around each other, okay? We're gonna make sure that he can't come near them no more. So that means you need to keep your baby daddy away from these kids. I understand that that's their father and shit, but clearly he wasn't being much of a father. The only thing that he was doing was fucking off and making kids and then turning around and fucking those kids that he made. Like that's some sick ass shit. You deserve to have your dick cut the fuck off and put in the fucking trash disposal. Or have that shit cut the fuck off old school Lorena Bobbitt style and throw that bitch in the woods. Set that shit on fire. Pour it in acid, something. Make it to where you can never fucking enjoy the feel of penetration again. Your ass should have been in gin pop in the fucking jail or in the motherfucking prison getting bent over by the biggest green mile nigga that there is. Jarvis, your ass is beyond the lowest of the fucking low. You deserved every fucking year that they gave you. I have never understood how a man can rape what he's created. It's so much pussy out here that you can buy. It's so much pussy out here that you can get, but you choose to go after an adolescent. You choose to go after a child, and you choose to go after your own kids, your own niece. Nigga may not have been your blood, but that was still somebody that was your baby mama's blood. That's off fucking limits, my nigga. And then you talking to her and trying to manipulate her, making her feel bad. She's thinking that she's got a real relationship. The girl is fucking 13 years old. Her brain ain't even fully developed yet. Her hormones are still all over the place. And I know I say this shit all the time that these girls nowadays, these boys nowadays, they all built and they grow in ways that I know I didn't as a teenager. At 13, my ass looked fucking 11 years old. Naziah was built differently. A lot of these girls nowadays, when they 12 and 13 years old, they already getting their periods. They already getting bodies that look like they on IG and shit. They walking around here with lace fronts and lashes and all kind of shit, and that's cool for them. They walking around here with cell phones. They got access to social media. They putting themselves out there. But at the end of the day, you knew that that's still a fucking child. You know that she's still fucking 13 years old. You were still in a child's face for no fucking reason when you had all of these bitches. I could see, if you was out here getting bitches, and I honestly I can't even say I could see that. But you had a whole harem of hoes. So what was your reason for going after a child? What the fuck could you want with a child? What is your reason for that?
What was the reason?
That shit right there, that shit is twisted and demented. Like, I had a motherfucking predator in my face every day telling me how pretty I was, and he fucking raped my ass and made me feel like I did something wrong. I wasn't even 13 yet. At fucking 11 fucking years old, I had a man in my face trying to manipulate me and make me feel like I did something so bad to deserve the shit that was done to me. I wasn't protected. Even after the information was found out, I wasn't protected. And that man continued to walk the free world. It took years to get over that. It took so much fucking therapy. And I'm so grateful to my father because he made sure that I kept my ass in therapy. He made sure that I got the help that I needed later on down the line so that I didn't fucking snap. And I survived that shit. But sadly, not a lot of girls do. It's so many young ladies out here that deal with familial rape. They deal with child molestation from within their own family units that have to deal with that trauma, and they're told that famous phrase of what happens in this house stays in this house. They're told not to tell a soul because it'll put a stain on the image of their family. It'll taint their family's reputation. Fuck all of that. Get those kids the help that they need because otherwise they turn around and they go to prostitution or they turn into child molesters themselves or they start becoming alcoholics or they turn to drugs, much like Nazia's mother did. She got strung out. And I wonder if Nazia had been alive and she had had that baby, would she have gone through the same thing? Would she have had that child and they kept it a secret and had her out here looking like she was being fast when in all actuality she was being groomed? She was being manipulated by this hot yellow bitch ass nigga. Often more than not, we are in situations where we can get help, but because we're so worried about being embarrassed or because we're so worried about somebody having something to say instead of focusing on the child, we suppress it, we hide it. That's not going to resolve it. All it's going to do is cause that child to carry out all of that burden with them until one day they fucking lose it. You push it to the back of your mind, you black that shit out, and then one day you fucking pop off. I know. They turn to drugs or suicide. I can't count how many times up until I got help, how many times I thought about suicide and actually attempted it when I was a teenager because of what happened to me, because I felt like it was my fault for years. And like I said, I'm grateful that I had family that my pop said, you know what? No, you're going to go talk to somebody. You need to see a therapist, but not everybody has that. Nazia was 13 fucking years old. You manipulated her. You took advantage of her. Then you killed her and you got rid of her because you were the one that impregnated her. She didn't get herself fucking pregnant. You fucked her. You raped her, whatever you want to call it. At the end of the day, you could say that it was consensual, but it wasn't. It can't be consensual with a 13-year-old. It can't be consensual with a minor. Your sick ass went and stuck your dick in a fucking teenager and you raped her and you didn't even have the common sense to use a goddamn condom. You already had 13 fucking kids. One more was going to be an issue? No, it was an issue because that was one more with a 13-year-old. It was an issue because that was one more with your baby mama's niece. And I feel sorry for every last one of these bitches that ever fucked with you because all of them sound slow as shit. Hell, Dina's ass fucking got ghosted and you got her pregnant the second time but tried to be down for your ass. Why she being loyal to you and staying 10 toes down and all of that bullshit? I don't know. Bitch, he showed you what he was about when you got pregnant and he fucking dipped out on your ass. You literally went on some whole, I'm gonna be there for this nigga. Man, fuck all of that shit. Because when your baby is born, bitch, if it's a girl, I guarantee you he probably would have tried to fuck her too like he did his other kids. But you gonna sit here and try to hold this nigga down. If anything, hold this nigga down in some boric acid. If anything, hold this nigga down while he's being smothered. But you gonna sit here and try to act like you 10 toes for this nigga. All of these fucking hoes is fucking bozos to me. All of y'all are fucking clowns. And that shit fucking pisses me off. And I know I'm crying right now, but that's just how fucking enraged I am at this shit because it don't make no fucking sense. Child molesters and predators like Jarvis are the worst kind of fucking human beings on this planet. And I have no sympathy. I don't want to hear that bullshit of, oh, I need help. No, what you need is a fucking bullet through the middle of your motherfucking eyes. Fuck all of that. What you need is to have your shit cut the fuck off. What you need is to be put in somebody's fucking fire pit and set the fuck on fire. I will never have sympathy for a nigga that purposely and intentionally sleeps with a minor knowing that she's a minor. Now, yes, there have been situations where I've known niggas to not fact check, so to speak. I know a nigga that fucked a girl that was 16 fucking years old, and he found out after he fucked her that she was fucking 16, and his ass got locked up for statutory rape. But that was his ass, because nowadays you really got to be careful. These girls are not built like they used to be. These fucking 12-year-olds, they built like goddamn 22-year-olds and shit. Niggas need to ask for fucking ID to verify that shit, that same way that y'all niggas go check to make sure a bitch is actually a bitch when she a fucking, when she's fucking born. You might want to check to make sure that she the age that she claiming to be, because some of these bitches go out here and they lie about their fucking age. Some of these little teeny boppers will go out here and be fucking tater thoughts and try to be older than what they actually are. And that's why you have to protect yourself. But in this case, Jarvis didn't give a fuck about that. He didn't give a fuck that he had a fucking baby mama plus other bitches that he was fucking on. No, all he wanted to do was go and fuck off on a teenager. That's it. He wanted to control her. He wanted to feel like he was a man. And I'm still trying to figure out why. You was making all these fucking phone calls to all these bitches when you was locked up. That tells me what type of nigga that you are. You had options. So it's not like you wasn't getting pussy. You had a fiance, you had baby mamas, and you had other bitches in your lineup in other places that would have easily given it up to you and had given it up to you. Now, granted, some of these bitches looked a little, feature challenged, but at the end of the day, you had options. And the fact that you got that 60 years plus that 60 to 90 years additional, you deserved every fucking year of it. You deserve to rot. You deserve that shit. And I hate the fact that this nigga killed himself, because this is one of them cases where I want a nigga to have a slow and painful death. This is one of them cases where a nigga needs to fucking agonize. But he took the easy way out. That nigga didn't even last 10 fucking days in the fucking holding joint. He didn't even make it to prison before he killed himself, because he knew that when his ass got to prison, they was gonna fuck his ass up. But honestly, if he didn't kill himself and a nigga got to his ass, like I think they did, I think they got to his ass on the inside. They just try to make it seem like it was a suicide. That's my theory. My theory is that the Department of Corrections is saying, hey, y'all, let's tell the public it was suicide, because we don't want niggas to know that he got fucked up on the inside. I'm actually hoping somebody got into that prison cell and fucked his ass up. I'm actually hoping that somebody went in there and fucked off on his ass, because he deserves that shit. I hope somebody bent him like a motherfucking pretzel, twisted his ass every which way but loose. That $42 cocktail, that ain't good enough for his ass. He deserves the fucking electric chair or worse. But like I said, his ass is gone now. And what's really crazy to me is that the person that claimed his motherfucking body is his sister Tawana. Like, that's some crazy shit. Like, wow. Like, you were the reason why he ended up in jail. You stood up and told him that he was a monster and that he needed to face his reality and that he needs to, stand 10 toes down on what he did. But after this nigga died, she fucking claimed his goddamn body. I'm sorry. But ain't no motherfucking way in hell I'm claiming your motherfucking body after that shit that you did. You like, woo, sis, you a good one. As the elders would say, if you like it, I love it. I don't love that shit. Like, nigga, you did, whew, that was stupid. Like, if anything, put that nigga in a bag or fucking throw him in the incinerator or some shit. Put his ass in the fucking parking lot out back and let the fucking vultures get to his ass. Fuck that nigga. I'm not claiming your motherfucking body and burying you. Hell no. They should have just let you burn. Like, that that would have been a good way for you to die. But I'm just saying, old school style. Burn his ass like he was a fucking witch. Burn him at the stake. At the end of the day, good riddance to the garbage. That is all for this week's episode of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast. You can follow the show on the various streams on Instagram and TikTok at Infamous One Podcast. And that's a number one, by the way, not spelled out. And you can leave a review there. On X, it's Infamous One Pod, where you can also leave a review. On Facebook, you can join the private discussion group, the Infamous Ones discussion group. Y'all know the drill. To get in, you got to answer the questions. That's it. And you got to answer both questions. But once you get in, take a seat. Tell us where you're from and what you're sipping on. I will add this very quickly, though. The group is supposed to be about true crime. Yeah, I'll post silly stuff here and there, but it's always true crime related. So let's not post any more promo stuff or anything like that, because some people have been posting stuff that has nothing to do with true crime. And I've given multiple warnings, and I'm going to start, removing some folks. Okay. Oh, I am happy to announce that the show now streams on YouTube as well. Yay. I know it's only like 50 subscribers right now, but it's a start, and I'm working on, getting images added because it's done through the RSS feed, but I'm working on it. So make sure that y'all like and subscribe. Okay. The link will be in the summary of the show. The show streams on multiple streaming services like Odyssey, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and now YouTube. So, leave a review. It only takes a few seconds. The reviews do matter. And thank you all to those that have left reviews. I am so close to 200 on Apple, and I really need these reviews to keep going and to get the show put out, in the suggested shows. So let's get to some of those reviews. Let's keep dropping them, okay? I'm going to read a couple now. The first review comes from Spotify from Jessica Austin, and it's on the part one of the disappearance of Naziah Harris, which was last week's episode. And it says, "Now that I have binged every episode, I am now hooked. You are an amazing storyteller. I will be following you from this point on. I know you got this. You have been in my prayers for weeks now. You have a gift because I just can't pick one episode to tell you that's my favorite. I have loved them all, even the Black Box episodes. Keep shining, Queen." Well, thank you, Jessica. I truly appreciate it. Yeah, cases like this one, it really rubbed me the wrong way because, innocent kids are hurt and there's absolutely no reason for that. And, I do get a little over passionate about it. Thus my little, snap a minute ago. In no way, shape, form, or fashion am I actually condoning violence. I just got mad. But yeah, you will never actually see me, conducting violence unless it's self defense. And, yeah. So don't say that the infamous one's host told you to go out there and cut a nigga dick off because that's not what I said. Okay. I mean, I said it in that moment, but yeah, yeah, y'all get what I mean. Okay. But like I said, thank you. I'm really appreciative of the reviews. I'm really trying to keep this going. I want to, and I'm praying that I can. Now, the next review comes from Apple Podcasts from Channy Poo, and it's 5 stars captioned, "Don't go." It says, "I've been faithfully listening to the Infamous Ones podcast since I stumbled across it over a year ago, and I've been hooked ever since. The conversations are real, hilarious, relatable, and keep me coming back week after week. What was the reason? Kay, I don't usually leave reviews unless something is bad. You know you done fucked up, right? But you deserve this one. The chemistry, the laughs, the stories, and the way you keep listeners engaged is unmatched. At this point, I'd be lost without hearing what you sipping on every episode. It feels like catching up with friends who always know how to make you laugh and think at the same time. If you're looking for a podcast that's entertaining, authentic, and guaranteed to brighten your day, the Infamous Ones podcast is it. Keep doing what you do. I'll be listening faithfully." Oh, thank you, Channy Poo. Baby, this review eight's down. I really appreciate it. I try to be different and, informative and entertaining. So it's good to be acknowledged. Thank you, boo. Again, y'all, thank you so much for leaving the reviews. Keep leaving reviews, keep sharing, like, and subscribe for the YouTube channel. Now, I do have a little bit of a surprise. So, October 23rd will make 3 years for the show. I had mentioned it to y'all before, that I was thinking about shutting it down after 3 years because of the way stuff had been going with the streams and the decline and everything. And I mean, it's been a great 4 seasons so far. By the time October rolls around, I'll be in season 5. So, I will be hosting a free live show in Atlanta October 10th. There will be alcohol to purchase, and I may be able to get a food truck for you to purchase food, but the event itself is going to be free. The space that I had reserved prior is non-refundable, so I have to put it to good use. But, I'm going to be transparent with y'all. If things don't really pick up within the next few months, by the time the 3-year event rolls around, it's going to probably be a farewell show. I know I'm not at the point to where I can do live shows like that because we see what's been happening in the past, but I really hope that you all will come out for this one. So, mark your calendars for Saturday, October 10th, 2026 in Atlanta, Georgia. Tickets will be available on Eventbrite July 1st. The event may be free, but you still got to register, okay? Now, with that being said, if you want to support the show or if you're feeling the spirit, meaning that liquor we've been sipping on, click the link at the bottom of the screen from whatever app you're listening to this episode on and hit listener support to subscribe. You can also donate via the Cash App at $infamous one pod. That's $INFAMOUSONEPOD. I promise y'all, these donations are going toward court documentations and interviews and all of that because it's a lot, okay? And I'm coming out of pocket a lot. Now, if you have a case that you want to hear more on that you feel has been ignored in the Black community, if you want to inquire about ad space, we are doing ad specials, $30 for an ad special. If you want to leave a review, send an email to infamous1pod@gmail.com. That's infamous@gmail.com. And once again, people, please share, share, share. I want to keep this podcast going. It's growing by the day. It means the world. So just keep sharing, y'all. Until then, y'all know what it is. I'm your girl, Kay. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see y'all next week with a new episode. Stay mobbing, y'all. Peace.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast hosted by Kay. Be sure to like and comment on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe so that you never miss an episode.